Hello there, it's Friday, which means it's time once again for the best movie podcast ever, the only movie podcast to offer objective and hyperbole-free discussion of every movie in the known universe. I am your host, the podcast with no name, Konrad. With me as always, feel the rhythm, feel the rhyme, get on up, it's bobsled time, it's Anthony James.
I am certainly alive. Hello! How are you, Conrad?
I'm very well, thank you. I've got a spring in my step and a song in my heart after a music festival this weekend. How are you?
I'm doing very well. I've got a spring in my step and a song in my heart about starting back to work properly today.
Yep, like a man in a 50s American infomercial for nuclear power. You're whistling as you go back to work.
As you go into the town where my school is, there's a picture of me with my family like this.
Yes, facing
smiling
off into the middle distance, proud of the little slice of middle America you can call home. That sort of segues us quite nicely into the film that we're going to be talking about this week. It's not set in the 50s. It's set in the bits of it are set in the 80s. It's a period piece of a sort. We are, of course, going to sunny Santa Cruz in Jordan Peele's Us. Box Office Bonanza is back because there was nothing good for Back to the Future, unfortunately. But Box Office Bonanza will be great. We've got Michael Caine with a cool nickname. I'm going to say nothing more about that until we get to it. And something.
Michael Caine?
I'm not going to say anything about it. And James Corden is stopping traffic and reminding us all that he's a massive twat. I say it's time to talk about some gosh darn movies. What do you think?
Let's do it.
Movies, let's talk about them. This time specifically, a Cinderella movie coming out later this year that probably no one is going to go and see because it's the millionth Cinderella movie. The most notable thing I think this Cinderella movie is going to contribute to wider discourse around movies in general is that a bunch of its cast stopped traffic in LA this week to perform a staged and incredibly cringeworthy I almost said lynch mob then. I meant flash mob. Flash mob is the term. And the antagonist in chief of this story is, of course, James Corden, the man that we all love to hate. Anthony, where does this put him in your most hated man in Britain list now? I believe he's probably at the top for pretty much everyone.
Well, he's not there anymore. He's not in Britain anymore,
true.
is he?
Yeah. We got rid of him.
But yeah, he's pretty high, to be honest with you. I personally, I've seen this sort of thing he's done before. Now, Conrad, you're right. We were talking a little bit before we started. This is his own film that he's doing here. And it is for a segment of his show. Let's not get that mistaken. It is for his show. This is a recurring thing that he does on his show where he takes celebrities out into the traffic, stops them and starts singing a load of songs. Now, I don't know if this Cinderella is a musical or not, because they were singing Let's Get Loud. Let's Get Loud.
Yeah, they were singing a Jennifer Lopez song, which I don't know whether this is going to be, a quirky reimagining of the Cinderella formula with some modern music in it, or whether that was just a song chosen for the flash mob. It could go either way, but I assume it has to be a musical because James Corden cannot be stopped from singing at this point. Someone about 15 years ago made the deadly mistake of telling James Corden that he had an alright voice. I believe it was right about, what was that thing he did? Carpool karaoke? Was that the thing that he...
Yeah. Oh, carpool karaoke he's been doing since 2015 on his show.
Maybe it was before that. I feel like maybe it was back in his Gavin and Stacey days, which is a show I never watched. But I feel like at some point someone said to him, "You're not a bad singer, James Corden." And to be fair, he's an okay singer. And from that point onwards, in every rider that he ever signed, it was like, James Corden must be allowed to sing at least twice in this movie.
Yeah, Jesus Christ! I'm surprised that that this is taken to this point. He's done 20 of these now. Why is it this one that is everyone's filming and then it's going viral? He did one in Paris where they did Les Miserables on the streets of Paris. They did Aladdin. Will Smith was on there with him in Aladdin. Oh. I'm not going to lie to you. Anything I watch with James Corden, I am watching it with a bit of this guy is the most annoying man in the world, But I'm glad I didn't have to be the one in traffic. Although I will say, I think that they do it on the red light and then they do it on the red light, and then they try and get off, and they make a big joke of it. They scamper away off once it goes green. But still, like, you know, that's pretty. It's pretty weird to do it for your own film.
I think, I mean, you know, to your point, I think perhaps this is more the straw that broke the camel's back rather than a particularly egregious crime. It's the internet's response to this, which, spoiler alert, was not charitable. The Twitter did not enjoy James Corden's thrusting, particularly dressed as a mouse. It struck me, and it seemed to have struck a lot of other people as an equally misjudged attempt to kind of harness social media as I don't know if you remember, but Gal Gadot's fronted celebrities singing Imagine at the start of like where it was, you know, all these pampered millionaires in their mansions with their personal chefs and personal trainers bringing them food and getting them to exercise through lockdown, while the rest of us fought with bloody bottles to survive the pandemic. And you know, that was just, it was such a great example of like the disconnect between celebrities and regular people. And I feel like this has been interpreted as kind of the same thing of that, where it's just you can imagine a room full of people in Hollywood or wherever this was conceived agreeing that this sounds like a great idea, and not one person in that room has ever had to commute in LA morning traffic.
Yes, you're exactly right. And also, I don't like the presumption that just because people will pay money to go and see you in a theater means that they want you to come and bring the show to their life. You know, that's not the case at all. If I was doing something very important in my life, or I was in transit or something, and then someone come up and start like trying to do their show at me, I would be very much trying to move on with my day. I wouldn't care who it is. I'm not someone who's going to be fawning over a celebrity, especially not James Corden. But I don't know. Well, the funny thing is, for me, Konrad, this is the funniest part of that whole thing. The clip you sent me was, because someone was filming it on their phone from inside their car, you can hear in the distance like the "Let's Get Loud," like the actual song. But all you can hear in like the foreground of the audio through the car door is the celebrities being like, "Let's get loud." And it's not even like, they're not even singing it well.
It's not a good representation of any of their singing abilities. Which hopefully is the reality check that James Corden needs to stop singing in things. Maybe he'll watch it back and be like, "Oh, I'm actually not that good at singing. Maybe I should do this less." And I am 100% with you there on people bringing the show to you. I remember once being sent a video of the entire cast, I don't know where it was probably Broadway, of The Lion King traveling on an airplane and bursting out into the opening. Yeah. And, you know, on one hand, I'm sure it was amazing. It's a great piece of music, and I'm sure they performed it brilliantly. On the other hand, if you're up at 4 a.m. to fly from, you know, New York back to London, you got to corral the children. You know, your 4-year-old Nancy won't stop crying, and Douglas, your 2-year-old, has an ear infection that just won't quit. The last thing you need is to be your fucking eardrums blasted out by that. So, you know, I'm right there with you as it pertains to maybe leave the show business in places where people can, you know, come find it if they want it.
Yeah, having said that, I'm not gonna come out and say that I'm a hater of flash mobs overall. I think that I'm not a hater of flash mobs overall. I will say that Lion King thing, like, I like watching it because I'm sitting in my house deciding to watch it. If I was on the plane, I might feel differently.
Yeah, when you're trapped in a box, it's a different proposition.
Yeah, when you're trapped exactly. So I understand why they want to create that, because like I understand why it could be compelling content. I just don't think I'd want to be an extra in the scene.
No, absolutely not. But yeah, so I mean, that's James Corden reminding us all that he's terrible and that we shouldn't go and see his movies. Now,
although it'll be great to finally see him play an animal. Let's wait. Let's see what he can do with it.
I'm not convinced that he knows what animal he is playing at any given moment. I think they put him in a costume, they don't let him see a mirror, and they just send him out onto set and say, "You just do you, James." Sometimes he's Buster Jones, sometimes he's Peter Rabbit, sometimes he's whatever he is in this movie. One of the mice who turn into horses. I think that's what happens in Cinderella.
Footman.
No, it was the lizards that turn into footmen. Come on.
Well, I'm looking at IMDb right now. He's a mouse and a footman.
They've messed that up already, so that's embarrassing for them. Right, so okay, what we're going to do now I've had a go at James Corden, and I've sullied the good name of the British film industry. We're going to go from one of our darkest secrets and biggest shames in the form of James Corden to a beloved national treasure, Michael Caine. Michael Caine did an interview recently in the Mirror newspaper where he revealed that when he was a younger man, he read a book called Teach Yourself Film Acting, in which it was stated that not blinking in accordance with when your body actually wants you to is good acting, and that he spent, and I quote, the next 8 years of his life trying not to blink, and in doing so earned himself the nickname Snake Eyes. Now, first off, that's a great nickname. I don't care who you are or where you come from. Snake Eyes is a great nickname. My first question when anyone casually drops in conversation that they have a kick-ass nickname is, who actually called you that, Michael? Because I mean, I can walk into a bar and be like, oh, my name's Thundergun. Doesn't make it my actual nickname.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I completely get you. What I will say is though, that ever since, thanks for this, Konrad, because ever since you said that, I've just been noticing my blinks. So now I need to practice not blinking. So what are you saying? Like in films, in the first 8 years of his career or something, if he blinks, he's knowingly blinking?
Like he was actively. I mean, he doesn't actually say when he started doing this and when he stopped. So I mean, it's up to the keen-eyed among us to go and watch and see at what point. Like, was it in Zulu that he was trying not to blink? Was it in The Man Who Would Be King? Is it later? Is it The Italian Job? But at some point in his career, for about 8 years, he was actively trying not to blink at all.
Well, no, but no, yeah. For the 8 years, he was learning how to do it, and then from then on, he just always didn't.
I think the implication was after that 8 year period was over, he was like, "This is actually a lot of work, and my eyes hurt, so I'm going to go back to being normal."
Maybe. I think what probably will happen is he walked into the set of The Italian Job, and they went, "What's your name?" Snake Eyes, and then they were like,
"My name is Snake." That's a terrible Michael Caine. I went for that.
My
name
I
was
is
really...
Snake Eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's like, "You're an idiot. You're a loser." He's like, "All right, I'll do it."
It just sulked off to go and make Jaws the Revenge. I think that wasn't the same year as The Italian Job. I've got my Michael Caine chronology all mixed up. But regardless, Michael Caine, he claims to have the nickname Snake Eyes, and I, for one, I'm not going to disagree with him because he's a national treasure.
Yeah. Okay. I'll take that.
Well, I think that's about as natural a segue as we're gonna get from Snake Eyes, which is a movie starring Nicolas Cage that didn't come out in the year that we're about to talk about in the game show segment, to a bunch of films that did come out in that year. The year this is tenuous as fuck. I'm spiraling into this. The year we're talking about is 1999. It's one of the greatest years in movie history, and Anthony is going to be put to the test in this year. It is, of course, the welcome return of Konrad's box office bonanza.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
Nice. There we go. There's been an intro there, or there hasn't. We'll find out when.
The intro for this is. I've had some real life compliments on the intro for this.
Well, there you go. I loved it. I love a little bit of hip hop, and I like the kind of the edge that it gives me as the host of this show. It gives me a bit of credibility. What
before we go on, Konrad? Is this going to be a party like it's 1999 feel, or is it going to be a C2K is looming type 1999 feel?
A little bit of both. Little bit of both. Like there's some party films in here, but there's also some more I'll say foreboding pictures in here as well. Okay. So we've got a good representation of how the world was feeling in 1999. For those of you who haven't seen this before, this is another of my inventive and entirely unique game show segments. In this one, Anthony will hear 10 movies from a given year and need to guess in the style of The Price is Right whether they grossed higher or lower than the subsequent movie, or the previous movie rather. The answers are all in dollars, and we will subtract a point for each incorrect answer, so we can score out of 10, and it's all domestic. It's all international gross as well. And for the first answer, just to remind you, Anthony, you have to get within, and I reserve the right to change this as we go on, get within 5 million, and you get the point for the first one.
Okay.
So,
cool.
as I say, the year is 1999. Chris Jericho has debuted in the WWE. Wrestling is on top of the world.
WWF.
WWF at the time. You're absolutely right. That isn't really represented in any of the films that we're going to talk about here, but I felt like if we're going to talk about 1999, I've got to get a little wrestling shout in there. It's one of the greatest years in movie history, and we will soon see why. Anthony, are you ready for Konrad's box office bonanza?
Let's party.
Okay. So your first movie, you have to tell me how much you think this grossed internationally in dollars. Is
Dollary dues.
in dollary dues. It is The Matrix.
Oh, this is a hard one. This is so funny. Last time we did this, okay, anyone who didn't hear the episode last time when we did this, like I was sometimes correct in thinking something did underperform, but other times I was way off.
But it was the Tootsie, effect.
And this is total gross, isn't it? Not just for opening weekend.
This is total gross. I guess you could call it lifetime. But I don't think any of the ones on here have had like big re-releases, so it's relatively reflective of the time.
I don't believe that The Matrix was one that gained steam with a DVD release. I think because you would need to have a fairly high sort of number here, because it did get 2 sequels pretty quickly after. Like it wasn't straight after, but pretty quickly after.
It was in 2 years, I think. I believe the last Matrix movie was out by 2003, so 4 years, I guess.
Yes, I think 2003 might actually be right. So I think this probably did do well. I'm not going to get within 5 million, but I'm going to go for 260 million.
You're almost there. 465, 377 million, 200. No, 465,377,200. That's how numbers work.
All right. The first dart is always
it's always the calibration. Calibrate that dart.
Yeah, I'm just calibrating it. Yeah.
Okay. Your second movie. One of my favourite movies from this director. It's Stanley Kubrick's final movie before passing away. It is Eyes Wide Shut. Did that make more or less money at the box office internationally than The Matrix?
I think this one's a pretty easy one. It is less money.
You are correct. It was less. It's actually a surprising amount of money this made. It made $104,264,617 dollary due. So quite a lot of money, all things considered. But you are absolutely right. Didn't scratch the Matrix.
Is that the one with? No, maybe I'm wrong. Which one's the one? Is that the one with Johnny Depp? No,
it's Nicole Kidman
the one where
and
he's
Tom
like,
Cruise as like a couple having. It's like a weird kind of erotic thriller. But I very much enjoyed it.
What's the one where Johnny Depp looks through a window? Secret window? I don't know what it's called.
The What's Eating Gilbert Grape?
No.
Don't know.
No, that's where his mom can't fit out through a window. But I can't remember which one. There's one where he's like a stalker or something. He looks through windows. God. Anyway, let us know in the comments.
I do not know what. Yeah, I'll be interested to know what movie that is because I've got no idea. Okay, third movie on this list had a budget of $300,000. Did the Blair Witch Project make more or less than Eyes Wide Shut?
Now that is a curveball. Now the question is, did it gain popularity after release on DVD, or did it actually slowly grow in the cinema? That's a question for me. We all know that it did become like a huge deal.
Yes, it was a cult hit. Well, no, it wasn't even a cult hit. It was a sensation.
Yeah, it was, but I just don't know if that sensation was when it became out on DVD rental release or in the cinema. This is my first punt. I'm gonna think. I'm gonna go lower. I think I'm wrong, but I'm gonna go lower.
Okay, you're going lower. Unfortunately, you are incorrect. It actually made over double, made $248,300,000. So it made its budget back, and then an extra $248 million on top of it. It was an absolute runaway success. The Blair Witch
it was one of those ones which could have gone either way, but but it's also one of those ones when you hear the answer, you're like, how could I be such a fool?
No, Blair Witch Project, amazing film, and did very well. Now this next one. I'm going to tell you this right now. This is a bit of a gimme. If you don't tap this one in, there's going to be trouble. It is, of course. I don't like this movie. You do. It's a source of great consternation. Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Did that make more or less than the Blair Witch Project?
It's gotta be more. The amount of neckbeards online that didn't like it.
Unreal.
The amount of neckbeards alone that I have personally argued with online is enough to bring it over the 248 million. It's gone.
I mean, listen, this neckbeard hated it, still saw it twice in the cinema, so, what do I know? You are, of course, correct. Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, made a cool $1,027,044,677. Even when Star Wars is shit, it makes $1 billion. It's a juggernaut, that series. It really is.
All right, I'm going to lock in lower for the next one, just to see it.
Well, wait till you hear it. The next one is hold on, let me check this before I say it. Yes, no, it's not the only foreign language movie on this list. It is Run Lola Run, a brilliant German time repetition movie. You're going to lock in lower for this one.
I am going to lock in lower, but before Run Lola Run, am I right in thinking that this is the same woman who plays Lilu Dallas Multipass?
No, she has red hair and looks very much like...
okay. I'm just thinking of the poster.
Yeah, it looks very much like Lilu Dallas Multipass, who's... I've completely forgotten her name now.
Mila
Jovovich, yeah. Paul W.S. Anderson's wife. Yes, Run Lola Run is a fantastic movie. It's basically about a woman whose boyfriend... I think he, screws up and gets into debt with some drug dealers, and she has, a day that she keeps living over and over again to save his life. It's a great movie. It didn't make $1 billion at the box office. Let's be real. It made $22,879,194, which was still a massive success by its budget, but it ain't going up against Star Wars. Okay.
No.
This next one, I don't think you've seen this, and you are worse off for that. I think a lot of people haven't seen it. This was the penultimate John McTiernan movie. The guy directed Predator and Die Hard before he went to jail for perjury. It was kind of supposed to be like a Lord of the Rings style thing. It is The 13th Warrior. Did that make more or less than Run Lola Run?
Is this the Spanish film?
No, it is starring Antonio Banderas as an Arab.
Yeah, I've seen this. I've seen this. That's why I thought it was a Spanish film.
Also, I think it might be the last role for Omar Sharif. He's like the only. I mean, Egypt isn't really the Middle East either, but he's the only remotely Middle Eastern guy they got in this movie.
Yeah, the reason why. Are you sure it's not Spanish made? I think it might be.
I don't think so.
I think it might be. Okay, I don't know why. The DVD, I have this on DVD, and the DVD version I have has I don't know what the number for 13 is in Spanish, but it was Guerrero, which is warrior.
Okay, I mean, it could be they produced it in Spain. It's about a bunch of Vikings who take a I can't remember, he's an Abbasid or something, take him with them on a quest to mess up some bad guys.
Yeah, and there is a moment where someone dresses with an animal on them in some way. Yeah. I vaguely remember that. I saw this when I was probably too young to see it, to be honest with you, and I had it on DVD. But yeah, so I have seen it. The question is, this little Australian boy, when he was 9 years old, had it on DVD. So I think DVDs didn't come out till I was 9, so 10 years old. I don't actually know if that means it grossed more or not. 22 million is not much. This is a risky one. I'm going to play it safe, even though it's probably wrong. I'm going to go higher. Should I go higher? Give me your energy, guys. Give me your energy. 22 million.
By the time they give it to you, your ship has sailed, frankly.
I know, but I can still blame it on them for getting it wrong.
Fair.
Taylor, Konrad, this is what I'm metagaming in my mind, because I'm thinking the 22 million is really low. If you were gonna mess me up, it would be to put a film even lower than the 22 million next to the 22 million. So because of that, I think you're a nice guy, Konrad. So I'm gonna go with higher.
You're gonna go with higher.
Oh God.
It's a good instinct because it was higher. This movie made The 13th Warrior made $61,698,899 at the box office. Still a loss because it had a budget of $85 million. So they spent a lot of money on that movie and it did not make it back. Yeah. And it's a shame because it is a good movie.
$85 million.
Yeah,
Jeez.
a lot of money on that. Now,
And I have seen it, so you saying that I'm lesser for it is actually false.
I take that back. I'm surprised. It didn't strike me as your kind of movie, but
I was 9 years old. I didn't know what I was watching.
yeah, you were watching episode 1. You didn't know what was good.
I was. Hold on to that to this day. Liam Neeson, come on, you couldn't put it past me. He's great.
He is good. I'll give you that. That
best
lightsaber
Jedi.
fight is very good. I enjoyed that. And Duel of the Fates. I mean, Tottenham come out to Duel of the Fates now, so like you can't.
Do they? I remember that actually because we went to see them. I remember that actually. That's funny.
It's great. I've got a soft spot for the prequel trilogy, even though it's rubbish. Okay, next one. This is a biggie. This is an interesting film. I think I'll be interested to hear kind of your your take on this movie, because this is one of those movies that was absolutely massive at the time, and I think time has been not kind, or history hasn't remembered it very well. It is David Fincher's big breakout from music videos, his adaptation of the Chuck Palahniuk novel Fight Club. Did that make more or less than $61,698,899 dues?
I think it made less. I think Fight Club is definitely one which is a cult following. But actually, it did launch his career in feature films, basically, though. But I do some part. I'm probably wrong again, but some part of me knows that it eventually gained like worldwide prominence as a cult thing. Having said that, 60 million isn't that much to get above. But I think I'm going to stick to my guns and say less, though.
Okay.
Just because I want to.
Okay, no, I like your reasoning there. It's solid reasoning. Unfortunately, you are incorrect.
Unfortunately.
It was good reasoning, even if it led you to the incorrect answer. Fight Club made $100,820,947 dues at the box office.
So actually, it wasn't that. So it actually was only 40 billion more.
Yeah, it was in a similar ballpark to the 13th Warrior.
It was in the era, wasn't it? Like it's about the same.
But it was Fight Club did very well in the cinema. Everyone wanted that Brad Pitt bod. Everyone wanted that Tyler Durden body. And
that's true. Actually, I forgot he was in it. I forgot he would have had some pull.
Yes, definitely. In 1999, Brad Pitt was about as big a movie star as you could get. I think it was probably him and Johnny Depp at that time.
I mean, those abs in Thelma and Louise. Come on.
Hachi machi. Okay, number 8, a personal favourite of mine. I first saw this when I took my young sister to see it in the cinema. Hated it, and then watched it again a few years later and was like, I was an idiot when I first saw this. It is The Iron Giant. Did The Iron Giant make more or less than $100,820,947?
Good question. Something I've been pondering for years. I think that was Brad Bird made that. I don't think it did as well as it should have. And this was, but I do think, didn't this lead to Brad Bird getting The Incredibles?
Yeah, Brad Bird would go
on.
on to make Ratatouille, both Incredibles movies, and Mission Impossible: Ghost Protocol, which I always find a really weird movie in his oeuvre.
Oh yeah, that's right. And I think he's also the voice of like that little woman Edna in The Incredibles.
Yeah,
well.
I think you might be right.
Yeah, him or another fella. I don't know who it was, but it definitely is a guy. All right, so question is, Iron Giant less than 100 million? Kids movies, man, you never know. Like, you went to where with your younger sister? That shows you it did have reach. It did have reach. I'm gonna go less. It's about time we had a less on this list.
It's a good instinct. The Iron Giant made a criminally low $31,333,917 at the box office. Very few people went to see that movie, which is a crying shame considering it's one of the best animated movies America has ever made. It's
and you can sleep happy at night, Konrad, knowing that those $17 are probably you and your sister's tickets.
You keep that. You take that to the bank, Bradley. That's me sticking that in your top pocket and saying, "Get yourself an ice cream on me."
I used to have that on DVD, but all I can remember I remember the film obviously very well, but the DVD itself had one of those stupid as hell little plastic flips, the DVDs with like the cardboard front, and it clicked over with a bit of plastic. I hated those
Immediately
things.
either tore the cardboard or broke. It was just an awful design. Okay. Now we're getting into the business end of this. You're doing pretty well so far. We've got 2 left. This next one, when I say the expression Shyamalan twist to you, Your mind is, of course, going to leap to the fact that the guy in this movie with the toupee, that's Bruce Willis. We are, we are, of course, talking... That's not my joke. That's a Charlie Kelly joke. Yeah. We are, of course, talking about The Sixth Sense. Do you think The Sixth Sense made more than $31,333,917?
This is the original.
Yeah, this is the shot. He'd punched up the script of She's All That, and he'd done a couple of other rewrites that he didn't really get credit for. But this was the Shyamalan birth. This movie.
Yeah. Unbreakable, was that after this?
That was after this. That was his next movie, I think. Actually, so.
I actually don't really think that Unbreakable had a Shyamalan twist in it. Actually, though
it had a sort of twist-ish. I mean, a very sort of standard. Oh no, this guy actually is a bad guy kind of twist.
Yeah. But yeah, exactly. Yeah, not really a Shyamalan twist. No. Okay. I think that The Sixth Sense clearly has a lot of reach. It was definitely over 30, let's be honest. And the thing is as well, like, I was going to make a joke there and say, it's got to be 0, because the amount of people who don't know the twist.
That would be great if no one actually saw this movie and it's just
one person knew, and then like
perpetuated
everyone in the world was
internet.
spoiled. Yeah. So I'm going to go for higher for this one because 30 million is very low.
That is a good instinct. The Sixth Sense, of course, made more money than The Iron Giant. The Sixth Sense making a lovely $672,806,292. Making it, I believe, the second highest grossing movie of the year. It was a absolute runaway success. I have kind of given away this last one, but it was going to be obvious anyway. So we'll rapidly go to this. I think you've seen this. This is Hayao Miyazaki's kind of biggest international success with Studio Ghibli until Howl's Moving Castle 5 years later. It is Princess Mononoke. Do you think Princess Mononoke made more or less than The Sixth Sense?
Well, I know the answer.
You know the answer. Let's be honest.
But in my brother's heart, it's more because he's got Princess Mononoke tattoos on his arm. So it is lower, unfortunately. I thought you were going to say Totoro. Hey, let's go! But I didn't actually.
My Neighbor Totoro wouldn't have even been a conversation as to which made more money. As much as I love My Neighbor Totoro.
Yeah, my son loves that film, and he just always sings "Hey, let's go," and then starts marching around the house. Okay, so we're gonna go for lower here, and I will say before you reveal my score, I got 6 last time I did this. I think so. That's what I'm trying to beat.
So you are right. It did make less. It made 150,345,863. Still a very respectable budget for an international anime from a guy who really hadn't made much of an impact on international markets prior to this. I mean, there'd been Hayao Miyazaki movies that had some limited releases in America and Europe, but this, kind of smashed it. So yeah, it did very well. So that will actually make your score. Hold on, let me just tally it up. We have to put a drum roll sound effect in here. Thank you very much. Okay. So this makes your score a very respectable 8 out of 10.
Oh, I'm not beating that. That's
a great step up. I mean, let's be honest. To get the full 10, I really should have thought of a different way to structure this, because unfortunately, the real tense one or the difficult to get one is the first one to kind of get within 5 of that, and that's out of the way early on, so there's no tension around it. But 9 is about as much as I could ever reasonably expect you to achieve, and you smashed that out of the park. You got 8 on this one. How's that feel?
Yeah, that feels very good, actually. Which one did I fail on again? It was
you got Blair Witch Project wrong, and you got Fight Club wrong.
Oh, yeah, that's right, yes.
So yeah. Oh wait, no, you got Fight Club right. You got The Matrix wrong. I count them.
Oh, that's right.
There we go.
Oh, The Matrix. That's right. Yeah, but no, that's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that, to be honest with you. Yeah, so onwards and upwards.
I think we'll probably... I actually don't know what it's going to be next week. I need to look at what's Back to the Feature, potentially. There might be some good ones coming up. I've got some honourable mentions for you, just to take us back to the heady days of 1999 when a young Konrad was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed in secondary school. That year, we also got... And there are some crackers in here. Toy Story 2, that made $511 million. Green Mile made 290 million. American Pie, 234 million. Sleepy Hollow, which is one of my favourite Tim Burton movies, made 207 million. And Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, 28 million. Lovely movie, like to end that on. Didn't make as much as I thought.
Lock, Stock is a Well, what about the? Also, you missed the Mummy.
The Mummy was in there. There's so many.
10 Things I Hate About You.
Cruel Intentions is in there as well. 1999 was a good year for movies.
Yeah. Just oh my god. Maybe it's because like that was we were coming of age. We loved all the films, Whereas these days, like I try and get to the cinema as much as possible, but I don't. I just look back at some years whenever I was growing up, and I know like every film that came out. Whereas
there's definitely a stretch.
Whereas
there.
I need to really make an effort.
Yeah, well, I think there's definitely. It's like when anyone asks you like your favorite Mario Kart game, it's always the one that you played when you were like 12, like the first one you played.
Mario Kart 64.
Yeah, like Mario Kart 64 is obviously the best one. But if you tell that to someone who's maybe a little bit older than us and played the one on the SNES, they'll call you insane. And it's similar with this. Like, there's always those years where, like, if you were growing up around that time, you just saw every movie that was on that list. And that we haven't got that in us anymore. We've got to accept that time halts for no man. And in that vein, I think that's about as good a segue as we're going to get to our main feature, which is, as mentioned previously, Jordan Peele's Us, a sort of period piece. I think it's fair to say.
Well, is it Us or is it US? We'll talk about that.
So, first things first. Let's do our credibility check. We always have to do it to make sure that we let everyone know that we're professionals. You've seen Get Out, but this is the first time that you've watched Us. Is that right?
Yeah, I've seen Get Out previously, and it's the first time I've seen Us.
Okay.
Yes. My wife has seen Us a year or two ago when it first came out. She saw it in the cinema. And for the last 2 years, she's been poisoning my mind that this would be a terrible film.
Oh, so she didn't enjoy it?
She didn't. She thought, how Jordan Peele likes to go for big statements about things. She thought it was a swing and a miss.
Okay, interesting. So we'll get into that. So for those of you who don't know or need reminding, this is kind of hard to classify as a genre, really. I think broadly it's a horror, although I think it's less horror than Get Out in a lot of ways. I would say it's sort of half home invasion horror, half kind of apocalyptic road movie.
And a little bit of dark comedy thrown in
there's
too.
definitely some comedy in there as well. And I think the first thing that I've really wanted to kind of draw attention to about this is that although without giving too much away, I think I broadly agree with your wife. Not that I didn't like this movie, but that it's not as good as Get Out. I'm going to say that right now. I think Get Out is a better movie for a number of reasons, which we'll get into in a moment. But this is a movie that did really well financially and critically in 2019, which isn't a superhero movie or a Star Wars movie based on an original idea and driven largely by that idea, as well as some kind of really impressive technical elements and performances. And I think in and of itself, that is worth celebrating in this movie. Like just that we can still... I know it's kind of... You should judge movies on their merits, but I think when movies like this are as rare as they are in the modern day, it's worth celebrating when a movie like this comes along.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And it is hard when you've seen the whole thing, and it's hard to look past the big statements it's trying to make, and did they do it successfully or not? And also, did I understand what they were trying to do? But I will say, like, the actual genre elements they were going for, I did enjoy it. I liked how it really wore its references on its sleeve, like the funny people references. I thought especially were really really great. Like there was a lot of funny people in this. Okay, let me just say this: I don't like horror films. Well, I do like horror films. This is a weird thing in my mind. I don't like watching horror films, but I like the idea of horror films. Okay, and maybe that's how everyone feels about them. Because everyone like genuinely wants to be terrified, but when I watch a horror film, I actually am afraid of being scared, and I which is a good thing I think because it works. And this film wasn't really giving that to me, and then those damn dastardly tethered stand at the end of the driveway and just freak the hell out of me. My wife Emma was in the other room on the computer, and I was watching this, and my son was like playing with the toy. He's not even 1 year old yet. He's playing with the toy, like, I'm looking at trying to distract him, so he doesn't see any horrifying elements on the screen. And But my wife comes in and goes, "Well, you're scared, are you?" I was like, "How do you know?" Because she goes, "Well, you were talking to him." Because I was talking to my 1-year-old son, going, "Are you right there, boy? Are you okay? Are you okay?" And Ema said, "I knew you were scared because you couldn't even watch the TV."
Yeah, I mean, so that's an interesting point. I mean, I love horror movies, but I'm similar as well, to be honest. Like, I'm a big baby when I watch horror movies. I'll cover my eyes. I'll, like, bring blankets up. Like, I've got no shame when it comes to being scared, but I kind of enjoy being scared. Okay, so it's interesting. We won't get into spoilers just yet, but so you would say that you found this film scary then? Or, for the whole way through, or?
I think, actually, I'm going to be honest with you, only that slight moment where, obviously not getting into the spoilers, but whenever the bad guys appear and there's a lot of mystery for the first 2 minutes about what's going on, although I liked the funny people reference of like just like sort of being there and the awkwardness of these bad guys being there, and like sort of it was all on your face, all of like a lot of the intrigue was gone for me, and from that point on it sort of went away from being a horror and into a thriller for me. The original sort of horrific element and scary element of like not knowing what they were doing at the end of the driveway went away very quickly, but it was effective when they did it.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think the initial home invasion section is creepy and definitely does creep me out. And as you say, that scene of them standing at the end of the driveway, where it's just unclear what they're doing, and you know, as anyone will tell you, a bunch of people dressed in the same clothes, standing menacingly at the end of a driveway, doing absolutely nothing, cloaked in shadow, is always going to be creepy, as it is in this movie. But as you say, it kind of abandons being a horror movie, and I have some things to say about whether I think it's even trying to be horror later, but we won't get to that just yet. It's interesting that you mentioned the funny people references in this. I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but Jordan Peele, this is kind of apocryphal, I don't know how true this is, but you can certainly see it in the movie, supposedly gave everyone a list of movies they had to watch before they started production on this, and Funny People was one of them. Right. I think Jaws was another one.
Okay.
Let the Right One In was one as well. So it's interesting that you picked up on that, because there is a lot of funny people in this.
It's because Funny People, like the way the family just is like sort of so in the face of the other family, and they're sort of, it's like so in your face, and like they're so sort of not hiding behind corners. That's what I felt about it. You know what I mean?
So I mean, let's talk about the kind of performances for a second before we get into spoilers. Is there? I'm going to pose you a question here. Winston Duke plays M'Baku in Black Panther, plays the dad in this. Is surely up there in the rankings of dudes who can go from looking like the most lovely guy in the world to an absolute monster with the addition of a scowl and a beard. Like, where does he rank for you? Because for me, he's right up there.
Yeah, he actually... now, this was actually in the trailers, the idea that there are doppelgangers in this film.
They didn't like, conceal that at all, I don't think.
So, like, his doppelganger, I honestly was like... I knew it was him, you know, but he looked actually so different. I was like... The rest of them just look literally obviously the same actor. Yeah. With this one, I was like, hang on, is there actually a slight difference to this guy? Like, did they put some sort of prosthetic on him? Because he does look completely different with that gnarled beard.
Yeah, you know? Like he looks... It's just... He has such an expressive face, and like when you look at, you know, I've actually forgotten his untethered Gabe. That's it.
Gabe.
Yeah.
Oh, the
untethered is Abraham, and the like Gabe is his normal, I guess, character's name, and he's just like this lovely guy, you know, played football, sings like got 5 on it, and it's just like, oh, he seems like a lovely guy. And then you see Abraham, and it's like, how are you doing this, Winston Duke? That is unreal that you're playing both of these characters. I think the only one who really runs him close in terms of really capturing something different in their tethered version is the young girl, Shahadi Wright Joseph, who I think has quite a lot of makeup on in her tethered version, because her skin is a little kind of like chalky, and her hair is really, really pulled back.
Yeah, she has like black around the eyes, like
black
sort of
around
chalky
the eyes.
Black, yeah.
Funnily enough, actually, as well, she was in a TV series on Amazon Prime 2 years after this called Them, so she was in both Us and Them within 2 years, which I found quite funny.
That is funny.
We got to talk. I will get to Lupita Nyong'o in a second, because obviously she's
Sorry, Conrad. I wanted to jump in, but didn't get a chance. Gabe, the character of Gabe. You said he was a lovely fellow. Winston Duke did a great job. Now, he was lovely, but I just want to say, actually came across a little bit that he was maybe even unconsciously a bit manipulative in the relationship.
I definitely think that's true.
Yeah. So he was sort of like, making her do things she didn't want to do by sort of putting on the puppy dog eyes and stuff, and like, that sort of subtle manipulation. So there actually is a moment in the film where she stands up to him as well, which confirmed to me that they were going for that. So he is a lovable dad and stuff, and he loves his boats, but there is like there's a little bit of a grey area in the character there, which I thought was cool.
I mean, he's kind of presented as kind of lovely and harmless, but I think you're absolutely right. I think he's also presented as kind of like a bit useless, and kind of just wants to get his way and is a bit of a burden, to be honest, on Adelaide. So I mean, well, let's talk about her now. Like, so Lupita Nyong'o, I believe she was nominated for an Academy Award for her performance in this, and I think the movie really does rest on her performance in a lot of ways. I mean, it is about the rest of the family, and I will mention Evan Alex is pretty good as her son. I think he's not asked to do that much, I don't think, but she is really the star of the show, I think it's fair to say. And it's the way that she is able to kind of play Red, particularly. I think Adelaide is a character who gets more interesting as the movie goes on because of things that are revealed about the character and sort of behavior traits that come out in the character. Red is kind of like a gut shot of a character where the moment you meet that character, they are completely captivating, and there's so much kind of physicality to Nyong'o's performance as it pertains to Red, and it's just immediately captivating, and I feel like she probably did deserve to win some kind. I know awards aren't everything, but she really did deserve to win something for this performance, because I was still just stunned by her performance in this.
Well, she won a few things, it says here, but I don't think she was even nominated for
an
Academy Award, though. She won one for 12 Years a Slave. But yeah, no, I agree with you. I think it spoke of a performance it just spoke of a performance where I'm just like, she was loving it.
Yeah.
She felt like, I finally have a character where I can really put my all into this. And it was like a real actor's performance, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, really, like, the voice was like, I don't know, it was almost like alien in a way. Like,
and it could have been hammy.
And it was,
I think that's a crucial thing as well. Like, if it wasn't, it really rides that line between hammy and scary. And I think she stays the right side of that line at all times.
Yeah, like, I think if you were to, like, performances such as this they have the risk of being described as like a what do you call it? Like, you're chewing the scenery.
Yeah.
Like Mike Myers in Inglourious Basterds, where he's like, "Hello, yes, hello." Whereas I don't think like this wasn't at that line. I think this was actually. I think it was not believable, but it was a performance which wasn't over the top and hammy, as you say. It actually was like sort of measured and thought out, and I could tell that she was putting thought into things. And as things get revealed as well, it actually makes sense as well why she sounds like that, and how it happens. But yeah, really cool. I love like the guttural, like sort of raspiness of her voice.
Absolutely.
I thought she did a really good job.
And I think I wanted to get your opinion on this aspect of it as well. There are a lot of scenes, or in fact, most of the conflict scenes in the early part of the movie are people fighting their doubles. And it's really interesting reading about the kind of technical aspects of achieving that. That they didn't use the kind of split screen method that you see in stuff like The Parent Trap, like about 20 years before this, but rather they have the actors playing alongside their stunt doubles, and then like they kind of graft the actors' faces onto them afterwards. And it's so fascinating seeing the performances, particularly in Lupita Nyong'o, but I mean also Winston Duke to a certain extent, playing opposite someone who isn't them and isn't giving the performance back to them that they themselves will give, and still being able to find that connection. And I don't know whether maybe it was in the edit as much as it was in the performance, but I definitely found myself, this is the second time I've seen this, and I still definitely found myself just forgetting that they're the same person and being like, oh, this just feels like two different actors who happen to look like each other. acting opposite one another rather than there being any kind of technical trickery. Did that like feel that way to you, or did you remain kind of conscious that they were played by the same person?
No, I think I understand what you mean, and I like, especially with Lupita Nyong'o, like they felt like very different people. Gabe looked very different, and I think I do know what you mean. They did feel like different characters to me, which obviously is again very relevant to things that are revealed. But I think I actually got, like the twins. Obviously, that was like a Shining reference, was it? Like anytime I see twins in a horror film, I'm like Shining.
Yeah, I mean it's not. It's always a good shout, to be honest. Like if there's creepy twins in a movie, it's probably a Shining reference.
Yeah, so like it's funny actually. Now that you mention it, the twins were more alike, even though they were literally different people than some of the doppelgangers were.
Well, we've got to. Now that you've mentioned the twins, I have to just briefly mention Elizabeth Moss and Tim Heidecker's absolute nightmare of a relationship in this. Like, never. They get so few lines together, and yet you so viscerally feel their hatred for one another in this movie. Like when this isn't spoil. We won't get into spoilers just yet. But the moment where Elizabeth Moss asks Tim Heidecker, says she thinks she heard something outside, and asks Tim Heidecker to go and check it out, and he's just like sitting in a chair drinking whiskey, being like, "I'm in my comfy spot. I don't want to." Like, it's just it's so pathetic.
Oh my god! Yeah, no, I wasn't sad about the fate of some characters in this, we'll say. Without going too spoiler.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. Okay, there's two more things I wanted to run by you, or just mention, I suppose, before we get into spoilers. So the first off, a serious point to get us back on track: costume design. Your wife is a costume artist, and as well as other things, and I was wondering while I was watching this what her opinion and what your opinion of the costume design in this would be. It was a lady called Kim Barrett who designed them, and I personally love the kind of red boiler suits, the single glove, the golden scissors. I think there's a real striking style to it. Did you enjoy it, or did you find it kind of felt a bit silly?
No, actually, I've talked to Emma about this after I finished watching it. I actually really like everything about this film except for the plot, not the plot, the way they arrived at their themes potentially. But I did like the film, and I think that the costume design was very, very good. I can't remember if I read this somewhere before seeing it, but I knew going in that there was going to be some Michael Jackson imagery somehow. I don't know why. Maybe I heard Jordan Peele talking about it or something. So straight away when I see one glove, it's either Tiger Woods or Tiger Woods or Michael Jackson, and the red suit as well. And why was that? Was is because it was from '86? Is that why?
What the Michael the one glove?
That's what she would have actually. Yeah,
I think that's part of it. I think it is like the.
Without going into spoilers, I think that the reason why I want to say is a spoiler.
Well, I mean, we can go into spoilers. I think the other thing I was going to say. Well, this is basically a joke, but this man's career is not a joke. Yahya Abdul-Mateen II shows up as Adelaide's dad, and better known to me as the guy who cheerfully had his girlfriend stolen by Zac Efron in The Greatest Showman's absolute worst subplot, which I was very.
Oh, by the way, since we talked about that, and you two were talking about how his girlfriend and all, I did go and talk to Emer. I was like, how did we miss that? That was his girl. They were brother and sister in that Konrad.
They weren't, but they were not brother and sister.
They were. They mentioned his sister.
They were not, but I refuse to believe it. Refuse to believe it.
No, I think what you must have just been thinking it was like the lingo, oh, you're right, brother. Like you thought it was like a cool like street lingo.
Okay, well, I tell you what, we'll put it to the people to come and correct me if I'm wrong. I watched.
It's been to a third party official like Ema. She's unbiased.
She's not unbiased at all. She has to take your side. She's legally bound to take your side now that she's wed to you. We'll see. We'll see what the people say. I know what I saw in that movie. Is what I'm saying. Maybe I think it was a romance, perhaps not on the page.
I think it's potentially this is your hatred of Troy Bolton. Sorry, Zac Efron.
I mean, that there is no doubt. But yes,
I don't know why he keeps getting roles where he sings in it. To be honest with you, because apparently every single film we've been on, I've heard like people talking from behind the scenes and stuff saying that he's terrible at singing. And in the first, apparently in the first High School Musical, he didn't sing in all of that one. But then he started singing in the second one. But apparently, in the second film, I think he sang the first note of "We're Breaking Free." But in the second one, apparently, one of the songs they had to change the key of the whole song so that he could hit one particular note, and then they put the rest of the song back into the old key so that one note was from a different time he sang it. You know,
that sounds like the kind of thing you would consider when you write a song for him to sing. But I mean, I at no point does he strike me as someone who is good at singing, to be honest. But yes,
Anyway.
So I know what I believe. I know what the people believe as it pertains to Yahya Abdul-Mateen II.
Let's get a vote up on the community.
He was also
tab.
very good in Trial of the Chicago 7. That's all I'm going to say about him. Okay, we're going to go into spoilers because we've got to talk. There's some spoilerific stuff that we have to talk about. So if you haven't seen this movie, here's your warning. We will talk probably a rating at the end of it. So skip forward a bit to that. You were saying that the costumes,
I think it's the Michael Jackson.
Yeah, the Michael Jackson thing. One glove. So Adelaide or Red is kidnapped. Original Adelaide is kidnapped, or swapped places with her tethered, and she has her Thriller t-shirt stolen. But I hadn't actually thought about that. But I think the one glove probably is her just kind of, as she loses her mind, her clinging to bits of kind of pop culture that she remembers.
That's the t-shirt was what I wanted to talk about. Whenever she gets taken with the t-shirt, I think it's like that was part of who she remembered as part of her life from before.
I don't know what the boiler suit is. Is that like a Kraftwerk thing? Did they wear boiler suits?
I think it's just a reference to Michael Jackson's red leather suit, isn't it?
It could.
Either
it
that
could be.
or Eddie Murphy.
Yeah, it totally could be. It could be Eddie Murphy as well. I hadn't thought about that actually, but yes, that's a very good point. It could be the Thriller suit as well, the red boiler suit.
Yeah, and I think also I'd seen before I didn't know any of this. I didn't know any of the twists or anything like that. I did actually guess the twist, I will say. I guessed the Shyamalan twist. But I have seen like a TikTok or something in the past which did put the two images together of Michael Jackson smiling at the camera at the end of Thriller and Lupita Nyong'o smiling at the camera at the end of this film. I didn't know the context of that, but there is like the creepy smile of both. Well, she didn't smile at the camera; she smiled at her son, I suppose. But okay, let me just say something because we could be here all day dancing around things. There's a few big themes that Peele's going for in this, and some of them I actually quite like. I like the themes he goes for. Let me just say, I like what he tries to do with his films. I love a filmmaker who is actively setting out to try and make a point.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think Get Out was so literal, in its description that I think this one was a little bit more nuanced, but also I suppose. I don't know. It's hard. Let me just say there's a couple of things what I thought. First thing I was like, because it's the same director as Get Out, I was automatically thinking about race. Okay?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
So then my mind was like, okay, so the white family got killed immediately by their tethered, whereas the black family are fighting to survive. That made me think that these tethered were some sort of part. Obviously we found out they are part of them, but they were like a negative aspect of them that a lot of people have to keep down within them in order to succeed in life. You have to bury that part of you in underground, so to speak, to succeed in life. But the white people didn't actually have to do that, and therefore they were already there. Like they were basically the same as their tethered, so they immediately died to them, and it didn't matter that they were replaced by them. Whereas the black family had to fight and try to survive. You know what I mean? So that was one thing I was thinking about. I don't think that was overall what they were going for, but that was just as soon as the white family died immediately, I was like, because it's Jordan Peele, I was like, oh my god, right? Now the bigger thing for me, I think, is very much it's a bit like what Parasite did with like the levels of the ground, right? So I think it was something to do with class struggles, and we could talk all day about that because the idea of, I don't know. Okay, this is Ema's issue with it. She didn't like that if it was a class comment, she didn't like that the underclass or the working class or however you would want to say were portrayed as murderous murderous people. But I think it was about like them being pushed to that. I will say, before I let you go here, is that an element of that I like, though, is, and I think this is true, is that a member of the Tethered who escaped that underclass, escaped that world in Adelaide, or Red, whoever you want to call her, in Adelaide, and she came out. At the end, whenever she kills her not her Tethered, she kills the real Adelaide. I thought that was a really interesting point that Jordan Peele was making, because it was the reason why the underclass stay under, or the reason why the lower class stay impoverished, is because even when people make it out of there, they're so terrified of going back that they actually kill the lower class. So people who get to leave the lower class, actually, like, she was so afraid of losing her position in the world that she actually killed herself, killed the lower class version. So I thought that was a really cool sort of thing about, like, people who escape the lower class don't necessarily help the lower class. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely parallels that can be drawn in reading this as a class dynamic kind of thing. I think my read on it is a bit more, I guess, more nebulous than that, which I think Jordan Peele has been very open about the fact that Us is pretty much a direct response to a Trumpian America. And it's about,
that's why I said US at the start. US.
Yeah. Yes, it was a great comment that I'm sure everyone appreciates now. And it's in his mind, I think, what he has spoken about a lot is how he wanted to try and capture the fact that in the last 5 or 6 years, segregations in many societies, but particularly in American society, are deeper than they have been in years, and that it's drawn to its natural conclusion is this kind of very obvious, like, visual dichotomy between the regulars and the tethered, and how, us versus them, they are a dark reflection of us by virtue of the fact that they are not us. And this, I think, is attempting to examine what happens when those segregations are taken to their natural conclusion, which in this case is a violent resolution. If you push two parts of society far enough apart, eventually they will resort to violence. I don't know how I feel about that as an endpoint for his metaphor, or how well he explores it within the movie. But I think that is what he's going for here. Something I was interested to talk to you about, though, and it kind of ties back into what you were saying with the class thing, is, do you think this movie over-explains itself, over-explains the kind of creation of the tethered, and in doing so, kind of, the fact that you and I are kind of coming at what Peele is trying to say with his distinction of the tethered and the regulars, and it seems quite difficult to nail down exactly what it is. Do you think in part that might be due to the fact that it gets into this whole, it's a failed cloning experiment by the US government to try and control the American people, and it kind of feeds you some stuff that I don't think necessarily is actually what it wants to talk about, but it's just trying to explain the mechanics of what it has done in regards to this cloning, and I don't actually think it's that necessary, and in fact I actually think it makes the movie less scary by explaining it all away. Did you like feel like you needed those explanations, or did they kind of strike you as a bit unnecessary as well?
Okay, so all right, good question. I am now, we all know, listeners of this podcast, that Konrad, it's interesting because this is a criticism you levy at a fair few films, that they over-explain certain things. Like, we'll just let things happen that and I think sometimes you're incorrect on that. Like in Inception, I fully disagree with you. But I think here, I do agree with you, actually. I think you're right here. I think even the moment, like, I did enjoy the funny people aspects, but even whenever Lupita Nyong'o sits down and tells the story of the family, it was about 3 or 4 minutes of her explaining what was going on, but it didn't really give us much more than, we're basically doppelgangers of you, and we've experienced everything you've experienced. That and it was atmospheric, and it was a good performance, but it was a lot of explanation to something we already could just put together ourselves.
Yeah.
Like the fact that she's with the same man, she has the same children. It really did feel like a bit over explained. And also, you are right in that the whole like sort of the experiment didn't have to be explained, because when you take that to its natural conclusion, there's no way to explain how this was feasible.
No, it doesn't.
Like,
it actually makes it make less sense, I think, by explaining.
Yeah, like we were shown one tunnel underground where people are actually acting out what the people above ground are doing. Yeah.
And
who's in charge here?
And like she's had children, so I mean, I know they say, oh, when they have children, the shadows have children, but it just doesn't. It doesn't make sense to me, and it would have been better as a mystery.
No. Yeah, and I think as well, like who's making sure this actually goes about the way they want it to? Are there people who work here? If they do they have their own tethered who also are pretending to work there?
Yeah, that'd be great. They stick them in the same office, just next to each other, but the tethered is just doing terrible work on the computer next to them.
Yeah, it is weird. It is weird, and I think that I suppose maybe is there some sort of also maybe some sort of theme being drawn as well between like the person you are online and the person you are in real life, like the data that they collect of you, like maybe like the tethered is like just like the husk of who they think you are.
Yeah, I mean the tethers are definitely more similar to my online persona than my real one. I'll say that much for them.
Yeah, but I think overall you are right. I think there was too much explained. It didn't need all that explanation. And Hands Across America, was that a real thing?
I think it was. We'll have to get our American listeners to write in and tell us. I believe it's a real thing.
And was it successful? That's mental to me.
The
idea.
It must have been. It must have. Because otherwise, how would you? I mean, I guess if it was a colossal failure, people would still remember it as well. But yeah, I'd never heard of it before this movie. And
I do like some of the details they put in though. Like the I can't remember, I don't know who the actor is obviously, but it's like some like long haired like homeless guy kind of guy.
Yeah, that guy is Jack Nicholson's grandson, and Jordan Peele told him to play without knowing that told him to play the character like Jack Nicholson, which I find very funny.
That's great. Well, he actually I did actually notice that he is like at the because we see him a lot, and he's actually the guy who got killed at the start in the ambulance, the first one we see dying, and then whenever the little boy called Jason, who wears a mask, I'll say, he actually goes to the beach and sees this guy standing with his arms out, and I realized whenever they went back to the beach and he was there again, I realized, like, of my own accord, I realized, oh my god, he's starting the Hands Across America. That's mental. Like, I like that detail that they had.
And I think that's kind of what I really like about this movie is those moments where it's like it doesn't lead you by the nose to the conclusion, but if you stop and think about it, it's like, oh, that makes sense. They're killing their doubles, and then they're doing the Hands Across America thing. Mm-hmm. And that's really all I needed in terms of explanation, because I think it's scarier if you don't really understand what's happening, and it's just that, and it's just, this is a horror movie. They are being pursued by their doubles, and the doubles kill you and then do this thing. Now I couldn't possibly let us go. We've already kind of mentioned it, and you've already mentioned it, but I just want to nail this down. We love a Shyamalan twist on this show. Love a Shyamalan twist, and you've kind of suggested that you kind of saw it coming. Did it? Mm-hmm. Work for you, the twist that Adelaide is Red and Red is Adelaide, that they switch places as children? Did it kind of affect your perceptions of the characters at all, or was it more kind of surface level?
It made sense to a certain extent, I suppose. I personally don't think that the Adelaide who we knew as Adelaide, who actually was one of the tethered, I don't think she would have. It was sort of portrayed that she didn't actually have PTSD, and she actually was just fine with everything. So I honestly don't think that person would have been able to be soft manipulated back to where she could potentially be found out. I found that idea of her not wanting to go to the beach and everything, and then eventually going, more believable when I thought it was actually just her trauma of her past. I think the fact that she would have known in her mind that's where I switched places with that girl, I thought it was less believable that she would have even gone anywhere near there. Like, why the fuck do they own a holiday house near there? I can just imagine if she's that scheming and evil the whole time, choose a different place for holidays. You know what I mean? Like, I don't really get that aspect when you look back on it, but it did, like, it makes sense to me. I can see when Jordan Peele was writing the script, why he would be like, oh my god, yeah, they could be switched the whole time. Like, I see that as a useful.
Yeah, I think it's not. I'm kind of a bit neutral on it. I'll say that I really like this movie still. I think it's a much messier movie than I don't want to keep comparing it to Get Out, but it's his directorial debut and then his follow-up, so it's kind of hard not to compare them. I think Get Out, you kind of nailed it earlier on when you said Get Out is a very concise movie. Like, it knows what it has, its ideas that it wants to talk about in terms of relationships between seemingly liberal-minded white people and how those people's perceptions of black people and black culture can actually have a negative effect on them. And then it's got its horror movie that's going on underneath that. And I think Get Out is pretty close to a perfect horror movie because it just does everything it sets out to do brilliantly, and it doesn't set out to do too much, but what it does is fantastic. This, I think, is slightly more ambitious, but it falls down in trying to deliver on some of its ambition. As we said, I think it over explains certain aspects of its plot mechanics, and the twist at the end. I don't know if I didn't dislike it, but I don't know if I needed it either. Really, it's fine. It doesn't really change my perception of the end of the movie, and really, like, my main memory at the end of the movie is the amazing kind of fight sequence between Red and Adelaide that's so brilliantly choreographed and performed by Lupita Nyong'o, rather than the twist at the end, which just feels a bit like, okay, well, she's either been evil the whole time, in which case it doesn't really make sense to me that she'd like happily go back there, or the point you're making is that the tethered aren't fundamentally evil, they're just broken by virtue of the fact that they're raised in such a horrific environment, in which case it doesn't really matter that she did well, not that it doesn't matter, I guess she did something horrific when she was a little girl, but who she is now is a fair reflection of who she is going to be going forward.
Yeah, I think that look, for me, to be honest with you, like, it wasn't that much of a surprise. So therefore, it took a little bit more of the bite out of me. The moment where she went to the mirrored, like the tethered version of Zora, and she was hanging in the tree, and she just got out of the car and went to her and like didn't kill her and like was just like sort of telling her to shh. I immediately started thinking, oh, okay, so this woman has more of a connection to these things than I thought. And that started me on the journey to realizing the plot twist before it came. I will say, at the end, whenever she smiles at the sun, because the sun knows the secret now, I thought to myself, like, I know he's a kid, but I was just thinking, don't you dare judge that woman. Yeah. Like, don't you dare judge that woman. If she didn't do that, mate, you wouldn't have been born. Yeah. Like, that's
kind of my stance on it as well. It's like, look, the movie's either saying she's fundamentally evil and nothing will ever change that, which I don't really buy based on what we see, or it's saying that yes, she did something horrible when she was younger, but she's also done all this other stuff and raised this family, so who cares? Like, and that was kind of my stance at the end with that little kid. I was like,
she also did kill the like Red, who is the girl that she's trapped down there. So it wasn't just that she trapped her down there; she did eventually kill her too. Having said that, she was trying to save her son, and Red would have killed her.
Yeah, Red was trying to kill her, admittedly, with good reason. But, it was self-defense, ultimately. I'm kind of on Adelaide's side by the end of this video.
Well, there's another theme that's relevant to Jordan Peele's work, actually. The idea that at the end, Red gets killed, but we're on Adelaide's side because Red was trying to kill her. But it's kind of like the argument, like, that the crime rate amongst black communities is higher. Yeah, but why is that? Like, why is that? We need to ask that. Why did Red want to kill Adelaide?
Yeah,
like, we have to ask this question. You can't just be like, well, she tried to kill her. Yeah. There is deeper answers to these questions which need to be looked at.
The context of that conflict is very important. Okay, well, so last thing now. Something that we've tried to make an effort to do in the last week, and we'll carry on this week. Mm-hmm. What would you give this movie out of 5? And remember, half stars are for cowards.
Okay, so we both put this in our ledger.
Yeah. At some point, we'll actually have the physical prop to pull it out of, but not this day.
One of the funniest running plot lines in Marvel for me, I've got red in my ledger, need to get it out. It's like, what are you talking about? This is not relatable to real life at all. What are you talking about? Red in my ledger. So in my ledger, I put this down as a 3 out of 5.
Okay, yeah, I went for a 4. Get Out was a 5-star movie to me, and I think this was below that. I could definitely see the argument for 3, though. This was kind of hovering between those two for me, and it was.
I would have given Get Out 4, I think.
Okay, yeah, no, this it was sort of like Jordan Peele inertia that carried this through to a 4, I think. But still, like, I'm glad to hear that you enjoyed it at least a little bit.
Better than Reminiscence, we'll say that.
Yeah, I think that's true. Reminiscence doesn't have Tim Heidecker doing the like offer a handshake and then do the Ric Flair like slick your hair back when they reach out for you, which adds a star to any movie as far as I'm concerned. Okay, well that's going to lead us very naturally into answering one simple question, as we always do, and that is, Anthony, what is your favourite movie this week?
Well, I thought of I remembered this movie's existence when I was thinking of 99 films. I don't think it's from 99, but it's from my childhood. And I just want to say it out loud, even though it's a terrible film. Eight-Legged Freaks.
Oh, David Arquette? Is David Arquette in that?
Yeah.
Great movie. I haven't seen that in a long time.
That was post-WCW Championship, too.
Height of his powers. David Arquette. Post-Scream, post-WCW champion. My favourite movie is Get Out. It is a better movie than Us, but they're both good. Thank you to Nancy Wyatt and Jared Iscariot for the use of our theme song. You can find links to their stuff down in the stuff below. And thank you for listening. Or I normally enunciate that differently. Thank you for listening. That's normally how I say it. Please consider subscribing to us. We are The Culture Cave on YouTube, and we're the best movie podcast ever on podcasting apps. Give the show a like, get involved in the comments. It really does help. And we will see you same time, same place next week.